Welcome to the dark side of filmmaking. In this video, we're going to be diving deep into the secrets of horror movie magic, as well as revealing the psychological tricks that make you feel tensionful, goosebumping, and spine-tingling fun. Are you ready to step into the delightful dread of horror? Well then, in that case, let's begin. Horror movies use psychological techniques when in production, such as horrific scenes, sound, and storytelling to create suspense and fear. This way, they can trick the brain into reacting though threats are real, even when you know you're safe. This is called the flight or fight response, and horror movie films are the king when it comes to this reaction. Licensed psychologist Sally Winston states that this is where fear coexists with safety, and some people are addicted to being scared. Luckily for them, horror movies love to scare people. But how do horror movies manipulate your mind? What do they use? What patterns do they have? Well, let's start off with what we see. Picture this. You're all alone in the dark, sitting down while watching a classic horror movie. Suddenly, a suspenseful scene pops up on your screen. It's essential that horror movies make this scene with care and thought. The designers need to tap into a fear on which everyone shares, and they need to make it feel like you're in the movie, almost like you have the main character's perspective. So, how do they make the scene? Well, for example, the scene will be set in a dark forest, with the screen being the perspective of the main character. And to no surprise, this scene scares you. But why is that? This is because the screen producers tapped into everyone's fear. Not everybody's used to being in a forest, especially when it's dark out. Researchers found that our ancestors lived and slept out in the open, which would cause them to be terrified of the dark. It was very dangerous during this time due to how predators roam the night. In order to survive, our ancestors had to stay aware. Sound familiar? Now, if the screen was positioned as if you were the character, you would psychologically think that you're in the movie. This would be called a point of view shot. This shot will trick you into thinking that you are walking through a dark forest, when in reality, you're eating popcorn and relaxing on your couch. Now that we're done with the scenery, it's time to move on to sound. Most people don't think sound is important in a movie, but sound is what brings horror movies to our fullest attention. When a suspenseful scene pops up on a screen, it needs to have sound to actually scare people to the fullest intent. For example, the jars when the shark is swimming up to its victim, suspenseful music is playing in order to keep our focus. The sound automatically assumes danger that way. Another example would be the unpleasant sound effects that pop up when someone is murdered. This sound goes well with the scene since people find it to put them at unease. How do the producers make the sound effects, or at least try to trick us with them? For example, when a character in a horror movie breaks a bone, the sound producer down at the studio would actually set up a mic next to a piece of celery and break it. With the viewers looking at the horrific scene, they don't actually take into account on what's making the sound behind the camera. Lastly, the storyline needs to drive the audience into the film by using engaging characters, villains, or monsters, and most importantly, expectations. A horror movie needs to have well-crafted characters that drive us into the interest. Each character in a horror movie needs to have human emotions and a bit of backstory, or else the kills would be pointless to the audience since they don't know the victim that well. For example, in Scream 1, there's a victim that we don't know too well, but well enough to the point where we psychologically feel bad. He has a girlfriend, he's in high school, and he's a football player. Without any of this information, the kill wouldn't have been so impactful to the audience. Monsters and villains are quite important too. The antagonist needs to have a unique personality and horrific image to it, whether it be a mask or simply just by the way they look. Psychologically, when we look at something scary, we know it's scary, but when the entity acts an odd way, it brings chills to our spine. On the other hand, expectations are the main focus in any good movie. When a horror movie conducts expectations, they use scenes and storyline. That's not normal, and psychologically, it keeps us guessing on what's going to happen next. This is because curiosity is a basic element of our cognition, which is our mental understanding of knowledge. We psychologically want to know more about a horror movie because it's in our nature to do so. And now you know the secrets behind the spine-tingling magic of horror. Ready to watch your next horror movie with this knowledge? I hope so.